you are listening to the Kinetic Man Podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm David, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living a life defined by uncommon action that is full of purpose, adventure, and meaningful relationships. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours, and together achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to leave the potential life behind and become kinetic men.
We're recording. It's on the cloud, not on the computer. Here we go. It's only episode like 280 something. I'm still figuring out how to do this thing.
Great intro, Stu.
That's how we start our
great
podcast.
intro. We've done this now for a number of years, still incompetent. But welcome to the show, Amy. I'm sure you're excited.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And it's good that you had that problem, because now I will be aware that that is a potential problem on my podcast and try not to have the same thing happen.
Well, let's just get it out to the world. All you podcasters out there, if you are recording to your computer, at some point, your computer's going to run out of memory, and you could be on a podcast. Not saying when that happened, because you'll never know. It could just stop recording because you ran out of space. I'm just saying this for a friend.
Can I caveat this too?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just want to add a caveat. Most of you guys and gals who are podcasting are probably familiar with this, and you're probably not JV. I have a lot of hope, and I have a lot of confidence in you out there, the listener, podcaster, guy and gal.
All you out there.
Just fair warning. We're saying it for a friend. Amy, you do a podcast. You do lots of stuff. Let's talk about you.
Yeah. So I'm a wife to Marcus Long, who's probably been on your podcast like 3 or 4 times now.
I think he might be at the top for the number of showings on our podcast.
I think he outranks any guest I've had on mine as well. He's been on mine several times. So he's, I was going to say a word that's probably not very nice. He gets around when it comes to podcasts. So married to Marcus. I have 2 kids, 9 and 6. I have been in the Navy now for 15 years. Most of it's been reserve time, 6 years active, 9 reserve. And I started a lifestyle brand called the Daily Hostess, where we talk about building community and connection through hosting your home and celebrations and parties, and created a podcast out of that called Conversations with the Hostess, where I talk to party experts, military spouses, people that are really good at connecting with others, celebrating them, and kind of building a support system over and over. So I'm really committed to the idea that we all need great people in our lives. And the best way to do that is to invite them into your home and, show your love through hosting them. And they'll be your friends for life if you do that. So that's a little about me.
Yeah. I'm curious. How do you do it all? How do you be a full-time wife, mom, entrepreneur, active duty Navy? Like, how do you manage to do it all?
I will say a lot of times people always talk about this like balance or work-life balance, and like your balance is kind of crap. You can't really do it all. You're never giving 100% to anything. And I'm an Enneagram 3, like efficiency is what I live for. As if I can get something done in the fewest amount of steps possible, that's like my jam. I'm a type A. So the fact that I can't give 100% to everything all the time really bothers me. But having done that over the years, you do kind of get used to shifting priorities. And a lot of things fall by the wayside. So there's that too. Like, no one's perfect. It is helpful to have a spouse that's supportive, and Marcus does a great job of doing things on the home front whenever I can't, and vice versa. It also helps, I think, that we've been dual military for so long that we both kind of understand that side of things. And sometimes the job requires a lot of effort or focus, and somebody else has to pick up the slack in other areas. We both travel for work a lot too. So there's this kind of like solo parenting aspect of our lives that we both have had to adjust to. He's probably had to adjust more than I have because he wasn't used to it for a really long time. And I think that helps you like appreciate the other person, and also allows you to kind of, know that you can do it. You can pick up that slack, and then you have a reprieve when the spouse comes home, which is nice. So no one's ever doing it all. You're always shifting priorities, and a lot of things fall, like a lot of the plates fall. but most of them are usually not that important. So it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I love that. I think the 3 on the Enneagram, I don't even know if it registered when I recently took my test. I don't think it's anywhere near anywhere on my printout. I didn't even know there was a 3. But I love how you highlight Stu and I talk often about this idea of balance and multitasking, and I personally think work-life balance is complete garbage, right? Like I think that ideally, in a perfect world, you want to be 100% present where you are, right? And we see so many, specifically we talk about dads. We see so many dads who don't draw those lines. Then you have this device, right? And you're trying to play with your kids, and you're trying to be engaged, and you're trying to be involved, while also trying to do work, because of course multitasking is the best way to do these things, and work-life balance, and it just doesn't work that way. And your kids don't want that. The people that you're working with, I personally, if I'm doing a deal with somebody, I don't really want to talk to them while they're trying to play with their kids. Like that doesn't show me the honor of that partnership, and they're also not honoring their kids in that moment. So I think that 100%, the idea of being 100% present where you're at is really where I've landed on that, to try to be, like even on podcasts. I think the most annoying thing about a podcast is when you have a guest and you could tell they're multitasking. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, looking down at the phone or doing something. And you're just like, you want people to be present when they're there. And we've just gotten really bad at that. So I really appreciate you highlighting that, because you can do a lot of things and do them successfully, but you really have to prioritize, be efficient, and be present. But I'm curious, go back a little bit. Why this passion for hosting? Like what happened? Like what drove you to be so focused on it? Because this is something that, again, I think it's a lost art, right? We go in our house, we hit a button, the garage door closed, and now we're isolated from someone that may live 20 feet from us. And you may do that for years, right? You may do that for years. You may do that for decades. People have. And so I'm just curious, like, how did you, what prompted you to be so passionate about this? And if you don't mind giving some practical advice for folks that are the garage door button pushers and isolate themselves, how can they get out of that?
Yeah, sure. So I think background a little bit. I grew up in a really, really small family. My brother and I were the only grandkids on either side. My dad is an only child. We have no first cousins. So I always found like community in my friends or in my friendships. I didn't see my parents hosting a lot or having very many friends. So as I got older, friends really became very important to me. And then with this like military lifestyle, like your family's not close to you. You don't really know anybody besides the people you work with or like their spouses. So you kind of have to build your own family. So I kind of figured that out early on, that, if I'm going to have anyone around me, I need to make those connections myself, whether it be through friends or colleagues or things like that. And the hosting aspect, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to that like type A. I like to be in control. I like things to look pretty. So I would just always be the one to say like, oh, let's like come to my house. I'll do this or whatever. I enjoy cooking, and mostly that came from my mother was a good cook, but I doubt she's listening to this. But I'll be honest, she was kind of lazy. So I would get home from school and be hungry, or like it was dinner time. And, I've seen her cook enough, but she's not doing it because she's busy doing something else. So I would just start dinner. So I've always had that kind of passion of like feeding people, or, I enjoy cooking. So I might as well feed myself because I have to, or feed others. So I've always enjoyed having people because my family's not big. I needed to make friends. And that was an easy way for me to do that, is, invite people over and, cook for them or make something look pretty for them. So I don't know, it's just part of my personality, but a little bit of the way that I grew up. And, some really amazing things have blossomed from doing that. And hosting others is you feel that sense of family when you don't have other family around. You have people that you can call if there's an emergency. I have a friend that I worked with that Marcus was deployed, and I had to get my wisdom teeth out. And she's the one that took me to and from the hospital, and like jumped a fence because we forgot the key to the house. And that was the only way to get back into the house afterwards. And I'm like drugged up after a wisdom teeth surgery. So, you make friends that you can do those things with by being vulnerable and open and inviting them in. I think the thing that you're talking about is so common, where people just keep to themselves in their home. They never know their neighbors. And I think it all boils down to people are really scared to be vulnerable. And I think one of the ways that we're vulnerable is having someone in our space, whether that be your home, your office, or whatever it is. But, that's space where you feel safe, where you don't have to show people your mess. You don't have to show an outdated kitchen or whatever it might be. And people are scared to open up and let people in. And I think the biggest thing that we need, like the mindset shift that needs to happen, is that no one cares. Like deep down, no one cares if there's laundry on your couch, or if your kids' toys are out, or if your house is a little dirty or messy or outdated or whatever it is. They're happy to be invited somewhere and cared for. And they're not going to care about all those things that you think are the reason that you shouldn't let someone in. Probably people are thinking about themselves more than they're thinking about you and your stuff and the issues with your house or yourself or the meal you made or whatever. They're thinking more about them. And I know for me, I do a lot of hosting others, but I love when I get invited somewhere. It's like one less meal I have to cook. It can entertain my kids. It can entertain me. I have some interaction with other people. So I think that mindset shift probably needs to happen more with people of, it doesn't take a whole lot. You just have to like invite and be open to having people in your space.
I love that idea and the concept. I was reading a book. I think it was Dad Tired actually. We just had Jared on our podcast, and I think he talked about just this idea of there's a difference between hospitality and entertainment, right? And
Yeah.
and what you're talking about is a hospitality, being open, being vulnerable, like bringing them into an environment that's not going to be perfect, and it's okay that it's not perfect. It's not entertaining. We don't have to have the gold plated silverware and pristine picture perfect house with the white picket fence and everything is absolutely perfect, and the kids are well behaved, and like that's not real. It's not normal,
Right.
and it will never be. And if you get over that and just have this idea of inviting them in, and that's hospitality, that's creating relationships and having friends and enjoying each other's company. I love the idea that the question though is, how do you do that if you're an introvert, and you don't you kind of identify yourself as someone who doesn't like to host and be around people and be the center of attention? Are you,
Sure.
would you claim that you're an introvert or an extrovert? I'm just curious.
I've taken multiple tests. I'm an
Yeah.
ambivert. So sometimes, I like to be by myself, and other times I like to be around people. I will say that introvert side of me, I can tell comes out after we've hosted people, because I'm like, whew, I need like a break. But if you're an introvert, I think you need to know your boundaries and like the things that are going to make you anxious or uncomfortable. If that's too many people, or if it's like you said, being the center of attention, have somebody else there that is maybe like the person that you're celebrating and it's not all about you. But I always say to start small. So whether that be just inviting one other family over for dinner, or inviting one neighbor, and then you kind of build up to two families or two neighbors or things like that until you're comfortable. I think that's a great place to start. And hopefully it doesn't make you super uncomfortable to, be around other people, or, have people in your space. And it's a great, kind of test. If you don't want to do that with your neighbor at first, then invite like your sister and her family, or some, somebody that you're much more comfortable with, kind of get the hang of it, and then invite others.
Yeah, and there's I think it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast recently with John Mark Comer, who, we love John Mark Comer, love his books, and he big, huge introvert. And one of the things that he said that really resonated with me, that I absolutely love, is he effectively took the personality traits of introvert and extrovert and effectively said, this is inconsequential to our created need and desire to be in community, right? And so he was saying that a lot of people use it as an excuse, and I love how you give a tactical way to get beyond that. Maybe start small, maybe start with somebody whatever that looks like. But I love the idea of, a lot of times we take these personality tests, we're like, well, this is why I do X, Y, Z. And his point is like, no, dude, it's a tool to help you understand yourself. This is not why. This doesn't justify sin. This doesn't justify bad behavior. This is just a way to understand potentially who you are and what you can do about it to get to where you want to be. And so this idea of introvert and extrovert, is fascinating. And I love how you, regardless of what that says, to push through because you recognize the need for connection and the need for, like you said, it was great. You know, who does not like to be invited, first off? Who also doesn't like to not have to think about the meal? Who doesn't not like to have their kids go and have conversation? Everybody loves that, right? And it just the degree to which you enjoy that may be different, or how you get energy from that is different, but it's still necessary. And then one other thing you said, nobody cares. Like, I want to emphasize this point. Just think, it's so intuitive because you just have to think about yourself, right? Like, I personally do not care about the clothes Stu wears, about how he raises his kids. Now, I love his kids and I love Stu, but when it comes to my daily life, like, it makes zero consequence on the things he does and the cars he drives, or anybody for that matter. And that's somebody I love, right? Because I care so much about my own life and my own kids and what I'm doing. And so the idea that nobody cares is so powerful to get past some of this friction to invite people over, right? Like, just nobody gives a rip. They might even be comforted by the fact that your house is a mess because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in, like, not picking up my undies, right? Like, that could be a very comforting thing. Undies might be a little extreme. Hopefully they
you should pick up your undies.
That's a stretch.
Well, they're clean. I haven't folded them yet, is all I'm saying. I haven't folded them yet. But it's just, I think it's so important to move beyond this and to get to a place. And I kind of want to go into talking about you and Marcus a bit as well, because when you said it earlier, vulnerability and as like the magic ingredient to moving relationships forward. And whether that's with your wife, your kids, other men, other women, like, it's really a critical aspect to truly grow in relationship and community, because nobody wants to be around that person that's living the Facebook life, right? Like, oh, my family's great, my kids behave. Like, my kids are turds, and I'll be the first one to tell you that. I told them that this morning. But I think it's I'd love to talk about, as Marcus has gone on this journey with TKM, especially us men, we're terrible at it. And you're on this journey with not only your husband, obviously, in you guys' life together, but this hostess and building community and all this stuff that you're doing. I'm just curious on like, how have you seen, no kidding, real life changes within both of you, right, in those different contexts?
Sure. Like I had said before, like, you really do make friends for life that you can call no matter what. Marcus's retirement last year really showed the connections that we've built over our careers and the places that we've been. We sent out the invitations, not knowing who's going to be able to come. We were having it here in Kansas City. We've lived all over the world, and people came from everywhere for his retirement ceremony. And it just goes to show that when you make those connections, you really do have people that will back you up, support you from afar, and they will travel far to come support you. It was an interesting year this past year after his retirement. 21 years in the military, 20 years of doing anything is going to kind of, I don't want to say pigeonhole, but like, you get really comfortable doing that. And then you stop that. And with the military, a lot of times it's, Friday you're there doing it and Monday you're not. And that can be a really tough, like, jarring transition. Thankfully for Marcus, he had a bit of I always call it a slow off ramp, where his last job was a little bit easier. And so he kind of started building like his civilian side stuff before he was actually retired, which was helpful. But I think no matter what, that transition from, full-time military to a full-time solopreneur essentially is tough. And one of the things that I love about his participation in the Kinetic Man is this idea or concept and group of people where he has a team again. And it's not just him by himself all the time. He has people that he can call or lean on or ask questions to, and he has people around him that support him, just like a team in the military would, or his colleagues in the military would. So it's a great way for him to kind of work through that transition and not feel as jarred as some people do, I think, whenever they separate from the military and have that loss of identity coupled with like finding a new job and nobody's there to kind of help them and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a really good transition for him to have you guys in his corner, and have those connections with you guys. So I thank you for that. I do, however, I know he has a great time on retreats. Sometimes I'm like, oh, you're leaving again. Oh, okay. This is happening again. Okay.
We
Well,
we
we're
love
actually thinking about ramping those up to 4 a year. So
Oh,
for.
I just
You're welcome.
fantastic.
ideally we can do one a month. Like that's really what we want to do.
And to be honest, it's not really you. It's him putting it in the calendar properly so I can see it. He always like goes on and on about things in his calendar, but then he doesn't share those events with me so I can see them in my calendar. And I'm just like, you got 95% of the way there. You got to
Come
get that
on,
last
Marcus.
5%.
Come on,
Come on,
Marcus. We're gonna have to talk
Marcus.
about that, dude.
Man, we talk about that's all we talk about is calendar events,
Right?
calendar level change. Come on, dude.
David never
He
has any
definitely,
issues
go
with
ahead.
David never has any issues with his spouse with calendar challenges.
Yeah, zero,
Yeah.
zero.
He's yeah.
She loves paper calendars. I'm like, honey, this is killing me. This is killing me.
I will say, I was going to say, Marcus has like fully convinced me to change from a paper calendar to electronic. So
I'm working. I'm working.
it's
I need to talk to him then to
so
get
nice.
figure out the tactics that he used to be whether it's to manipulate or to just encourage change in that front. Because we're she's paper. I'm fully Google Calendar. So yeah, we got to get that sorted.
Yeah. I will say one thing as a spouse is kind of nice. I have access to his calendar. So a couple things that I do, maybe this will convince your wife. Like we have never had a relationship where there was a lack of trust where I needed to like check up on him, but it's kind of nice that I can like check his calendar, be like, what's he doing right now? Like if I'm in the office or something, I'm like, oh, is he on a call? What's he doing? I don't know. And then the other thing is that when I need something done, I just block off his calendar and assign him tasks so that they get done.
I love that. How do you assign him tasks? You actually put it on the calendar, or is there like another like software
Yeah.
that you do? No. Yeah.
I will just give him like a Google calendar invite. 2 hours. I need you to hang pictures around the house or something like that. That was the one we used after our household goods arrived last fall. That I was getting frustrated because those things weren't getting done, and I was like, well, I'm just going to block off the calendar.
Love it. I love it. Hey, speaking of, I read a book not too long ago called Of Boys and Men. And it's a really interesting book that talks about essentially it's the decline of manhood, where the man has felt like there's been one role. If you go back in time to our parents and our grandparents, the man went off right to work. He worked all day long. He came back. The wife was at home taking care of the kids, cooking and cleaning, and that was kind of our grandparents' version of the roles that they played, right? And since then, there's been a women's movement of women in the workforce, and that's amazing. I think it's absolutely awesome that that's happening, and you're a part of that. Um, and you're kind of filling multiple roles now. You're still the mom, you're still the caretaker, but you're now actually working too, and you're providing income, and you're the provider. And you're kind of filling both roles, and you're doing it all. But the man has kind of been stuck in this "I'm still the provider, and that's all I do" role, right? And I think it's a bad place to be for men. There's signs that is the case. And I think we are having a hard time getting to fill other roles in our life, like being the caretaker. And you talked about, both of you travel, right? You travel for your Navy job. He travels for his real estate job. He goes to conferences. He comes to TKM retreats, and he's forced to be the other side. He's forced to be, the solo parent. But he has taken on that, like, really well. And he and I talk quite a bit about, the challenges and the struggles in that of blocking off time and not being on a work call, not being, on the computer doing an Excel spreadsheet and analyzing a deal. And this is the time that I'm going to play with my kids and throw the football and go to things and make the breakfast and be that caretaker role. Has there been a conversation with you guys on either a struggle to get to that place, or, what have you seen that you guys are doing that has been successful in that, of having Marcus kind of fill the role, just like you're filling multiple roles too?
Sure. That is a really good point. We have had in the last year a pretty massive role switch in our household as far as him being home all the time and me picking up active orders and being in the office a lot more and things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we sat down and had a conversation and like, we're going to divide labor this way. It just kind of naturally played out that way. But I, one of the things that this is like a minor thing, but it makes such a difference as I started working out in the mornings at like 5 or 6. There's like a workout class I go to. And he started like filling my water bottle up for me or starting the car for me whenever it's cold outside. And it made that like transition in the morning really smooth. And so he had done it a few times. And I think what helps him to continue to do that is after I noticed, like, man, this is really helpful that I don't have to take those 2 minutes to like fill my water bottle up or get into a cold car. I just tell him thank you. And like, I really appreciate that you do this for me. It makes my morning getting to the gym a lot easier. And it shows me that you care and I want you to know that I appreciate it. So then he keeps continuing to do that and doing those little things that kind of are a little bit more caretaking. I will say going back, it hasn't always been like that easy or that natural. When I got off active duty and into the reserves because we were starting a family and being dual military with kids, I just didn't see how that was going to work. So I got off active duty. And one of the first, probably the first few years that I was traveling for the Navy Reserves, it would be a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time. I would leave him massive, like multiple page list documents of here's the schedule, here's the clothes, here's the food, like here's all the things. I would prepare meals before I left. I would do all the things that I normally would do if I was there beforehand so that he was like set up for success and he had step-by-step instructions for everything. So that was the first few years. And over the years, those documents have gone from, like 7 pages, I think was kind of the biggest one, to I just leave. Those pages would get smaller and smaller. Those instructions would be smaller and smaller. And then finally, and this was probably when we were in England, so our kids were like 5 and 2, 6 and 3, that kind of age. Finally, I just at one time said, like, I don't have a lot of time to write a 5-page document. Like, you are also a parent. You can figure it out. Like, you've got it. You've done this enough. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm a phone call away if you need me. So there are those conversations of like encouraging each other, being grateful for what each other is doing, but also realizing that, especially if you're traveling or solo parenting, like you got to let the other person be a parent too. And on those trips, there was a pivotal trip. I think it was maybe a year and a half ago, where I was gone for 2 weeks. And that's kind of the longest that I've been gone. And during that time, he started making the kids lunches for school in the morning because I wasn't there to do it. And when I got back from that trip, he essentially said, I'm going to continue to do this every day. He said, I like the way that I do it. I don't like the way that you're doing it. It makes life a little bit easier if I just do it. And I was like, this is great. One less thing that I have to do or worry about with the kids. And it's also during the time that I'm working out. So like we each have our time to do our things. And it's worked out really well. It gives him some time with the kids in the morning, or even the night before, like asking them what they want, talking them through like lunch stuff or whatever. And so he has fully taken on that role of getting the kids ready in the morning because I'm working out, getting their lunches ready. Sometimes at this point, at least in the past few months, I felt like he kind of knows their schedule a little bit better than I do sometimes. And that was hard for me. Like when this kind of role shift has happened of letting go of control, when I came back from that trip and he started doing lunches, I was kind of like, I wanted to kind of jump back in there sometimes. And he's like, I got it. You don't need to like ask them. You don't need to do the things. You're in my way. So it's been hard for me to like let go of control, but I have now. And it's so nice. I don't know if that answered your question. That was a really long answer. Sorry.
No, I think you hit on some really important things though. And because I'm thinking about my household too. And obviously, we're military guys here. And so the transition you just talked about, that's something that, we both experienced. You obviously experienced it intimately. Mark's experienced it with this, I mean, I was a CEO of a unit running a couple businesses. And so like the idea of me doing morning routines or even evening stuff like that just wasn't a thing. But what I will say, and I really want to emphasize this, a lot of times dudes they're uncomfortable with the idea of these roles that they have not actually done. Right. And so what I want to encourage all our dude listeners out there, if you've got kids, like do it, like try it. And I'll tell you, it's transformative when you, even if you're not comfortable in a specific role, like when, as soon as I got out, I guess I was still in, but when I moved back here, I immediately took the role of like all morning routines. And I mean, I make a mean sandwich anyways. So like my wife was like, go ahead. But like I do, I get up with them, I get them up, I get snuggle time, which they hate. I love. I wake them up with just hardcore snuggles, bring them down.
I've heard about the Dave hugs.
Oh, dude, the kids get them too, and they're like every one of them, no joke, they complain. Like every one of them's like, Dad, no, I don't want. I'm like, dude, like this is when you're 18, you can make a different choice, right? But until then, like you're in my house, my snuggle time. But I do like the morning routine. I get them up. My wife helps tremendously with that as well. But I like do breakfast. I have this time with them, and I'll tell you, I called Stu probably 6 months into our transition, and I was like, dude, like we have to make our businesses work. Like I can't see myself going back working for somebody in the morning. Like I just can't. Like I love this too much. And so the reason I say that is because a lot of guys don't even try it because they're like, well, my wife does she makes like making a sandwich is really not that hard, guys. Like I promise you, it's not that hard. And you may find that you love it. Making waffles every morning, really pretty simple also. So there's these things that we can do. But then my wife, and you hit this, and I think it's a critical point that we have to do this together. My wife, she likes the control, right? She likes to do things that are her, even if they're less efficient than the way I do them. She likes them her way, as do I. But at the end, if you step back, you're like, okay, what's good for the team? Am I actually truly happier with him doing this or me controlling it? And I think it's a critical point that we all have responsibility. And dads, I want to put this emphasis on, you have responsibility to be a dad. Like I can't stand when dudes are like, oh, I'm babysitting my kids. You're not babysitting. Are you getting paid? You're not a babysitter. You're a dad. You're dadding. Like you're not watching the kid, like you're dadding. This is what our role is. But I think we've gotten so accustomed to it that words like I'm babysitting this weekend come out, or I don't do breakfast routine. Why not? I never have. Oh, okay. Well, is it that good? Like you're never going to go for another job again because you've never done that. Like what it doesn't make sense. Right. And so I love how you highlight that. And on the mom side too, I think it's a little more common. Like moms, let your husbands fail and do and learn how to be good dads, because it's not natural. We're not born with it. And to Stu's point, we've been told what our role is for so long that we actually believe this lie that that's our role. That's not our role. Our role is to be a dad. And that is multifaceted, encompasses much more than going to make a paycheck. And I actually encourage my wife, I'm like, honey, if you would make more money than I would, like I would love that. I'd welcome that. Like I can totally embrace that. So I appreciate you highlighting all of that.
Yeah, I will say from like the mom perspective, it was kind of forced in our family that I had to take myself out of the equation and travel for work. But I have spoken with a lot of moms through school and things like that that have never left their children, never been away, never had to put all of the parenting on the dad or their spouse. And I would encourage moms to take a weekend away, take a Tuesday to a Thursday, whatever, like do something where even if you're in the same town, but you're in a hotel, and take a few days away. So it kind of forces the hand of your spouse to get in there and figure stuff out. And yeah, they might fail, but like they're also a parent if your children are alive at the end of the day. Like that's the goal, right? They're going to make sure that happens. They might not be fed well or, bathed, but hey, they've tried and you've taken yourself out of the equation so that they can focus on doing that.
Well, and I think it's important too. A lot of dads, I think, will realize, like, I kind of really enjoy when my wife goes on girl trips. One, because I support her in doing that and I want her to do that. Like she's going to actually this week, end of this week is girls trip. And I've got like zero nervousness about any of it, right? Like I'm actually looking forward to it because my kids are different. When it's just dad time, they're also different, right? But that
my kids behave so much better for him than they do for me.
Oh, and it's true. And I'll tell you what's interesting about that is if you never give each other those times, like I think women should encourage dudes to go, right? Like you're very good at encouraging, like Marcus has been to Has he been to every retreat we've done, Stu? Like he's been to
I
Yeah.
every
think
retreat
so.
we've done, right?
Yes.
And so you're super supportive and encourage that. But when my wife goes, I also get to experience a different side of my children than when she's there. Like I get to know them more deeply and profoundly in a different environment in a different way, but they also get to know me differently, right? They get to know and respect and love me for the things that I bring that are very unique to it as a dad. Like we play with sharp objects and go like chop things and cut and do things that like my wife's like, this is I don't want to be here. I'm like, we don't want you here. we don't want you here. Like we want to do these things, light this stuff on fire and like do like stuff that we do when you're not here. That includes my daughter, right? And so I want to encourage, dads and moms, you also need a break. Like you should go with your girlfriends, get away from these kids and let the men, we say fail. Like it's just different, right? And some dudes will fail. but I mean, there also will be a lot of successes. There will be a lot of beautiful things that happen. And it's also great for us to support our wives and be like, hey, I want you to go. Don't call. Like my wife doesn't even call. Like I'm like, can you just like we're not big talking during the day and stuff. We don't check in, but I'm like, honey, you traveled on an airplane multiple hundreds of miles away. Like, just let me know, like you're good. Like you don't have to completely cut everything off. I don't need your help. Just let us know you're good. But I mean, there's some beauty in that too, right? There's some beauty in that.
Yeah, I will say, talk about the communication piece when you're gone is kind of important for all parties, the spouse that's gone, the spouse that's home, and the kids. I've found a lot of times when I travel, it's easier if I don't call because the kids, it kind of just like messes them up a little bit as far as like their routine, their emotional kind of support, and things like that. However, like you said, I feel like I need the spouse to check in. Marcus was gone for a week at a conference recently, and I knew he was super busy while he was there. So I wasn't really bothering him, but he went probably like a solid 4 or 5 days without any sort of contact.
That's
And
strong. That's
finally,
strong.
yeah. And finally, I was like, are you alive? Like, I need to know you're okay. And when he got back, I had that conversation of like, you can't be gone for a week and not call. Like for me, I was missing him and needed that connection and needed to know he was okay. So I'm like, that's just not going to fly anymore. So we've had the conversation. So hopefully it won't happen
That's
again.
great. That's
But the
great.
kinetic man retreats are like 3 or 4 days. And that I'm usually like, see you later. We'll see you when you get back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't call me. Hey,
Yeah.
curious, do you guys talk on a regular basis like throughout the day? I mean, are you guys, it's talking about check-ins and communicating. Do you guys talk throughout the day with each other, send texts to each other? I'm just curious.
Um, if I'm in the office, I don't a whole lot. There might be some sort of logistical thing with that day that we have to communicate about, but there's not a lot of like lovey-dovey check-ins. When we're both working from home, obviously we see each other around the house and stuff, but my office is upstairs, his is downstairs. So we try and sometimes have lunch together just because like the timing works out, but a lot of times he'll be on calls, and so I look at his calendar again and see when he's not on a call, and then I might like run down and just say hey and kind of like chit chat or whatever. um there are times I will say, and I would encourage other spouses to do this, like there's been times in the past where I know he's struggling with something, um especially working by himself at home, like he was just feeling isolated and lonely, and there was a period of time where that was like kind of at a high, and I was in the office quite a bit at that point. So I would send him texts throughout the day. I'm just like, hey, just thinking about you, hoping you're okay. And, just checking in just to have some sort of like connection with him. And that goes in waves of working by yourself from home and stuff. He's now gotten an office out of the house so that he can be around people so that that doesn't happen as much. But um, it's not super consistent for us in our relationship, but
How about you guys do date nights? You guys schedule dates, put them on the calendar? And
we're
I
really,
can't wait
really
to.
bad about that.
All right, we're gonna hold them accountable to that a little bit more.
Yeah. I think they usually revolve around like things that are happening, if there's an event or something we need to go to, but we are not good about doing like weekly or monthly, like just us, just because. Um, I know that everybody talks about how great it is. I don't necessarily feel like it's necessary in our relationship because we do spend a lot of time together. However, when he's gone for like 7 days at a time, when he gets back, I kind of am like, I need you to be with me for a little bit. But yeah, we could definitely get better at it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because my wife and I were just talking 2 nights ago about kind of trying to get more date nights on the calendar because we're not very good at it about it either, to be brutally honest. And she's like, you know what? We don't have to like go out to a nice dinner or go do something fun, like go out and making a thing. Like, how about we just like hang at the house and like work on a house project together, or like, you know, do some painting or,
She's manipulating you,
like,
dude.
yeah, I
She's
know, dude. Yeah,
manipulating
she's
you.
like,
She's like,
no, but
I got an idea. How about date night be? I've got this honeydew list, and
yeah,
I'd really love if you did items
but
3
she
through
just wants,
15.
yeah, right. But she wants to do it together, right? Like she wants to like do things together. Like one of our dates was pretty funny. She actually it was her choice, and we went to IKEA, and I thought it was awful, but we went to IKEA and we had lunch at IKEA, which is great. Like the food at IKEA is really good. The meatballs are on point, but her date idea was to go to IKEA, and I suffered through it, but yeah, it's all
That
good.
sounds like a great date, dude. Like that sounds like a really good, bonding time for both of you. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the flag on that and be like,
Yeah,
do a date night. Don't do a honeydew list. Just throwing that out
yeah.
there.
Well,
No, I think it's important. I love that, Amy, because it sounds like you guys do a lot of you guys have a lot of time together, and I do think there's as I suck at it too, doing date nights, and she's much better at making them happen, but ultimately I think the importance is just that connection, as we talked about. Send your wife, send ladies go do ladies stuff, dudes go do dude stuff, but there's also an element of, okay, like let's leave the kids and let's go do us stuff too. Like it should be a priority, and it's challenging, it's hard. It is not easy. It'd be much easier for me to do like hey, let's host a part, let's have an impromptu. I'm extreme extrovert, but let's have an impromptu like get together, have people over, and that's much more easy for me than hey, let's go do a date night and let's sit down and talk about serious stuff.
Yeah, I will say it kind of is easier since he's home. Like he's retired, works from home. Like we will go get breakfast sometimes after dropping the kids off, or like I think I had to like run an errand or something recently. And he was like, "Can I come with you?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then that made it, it's just spending, it wasn't like a planned date night, but it was like, oh, like we're doing this fun little errand together in the middle of the day. Like that seems special and, fun rather than like we have to get a babysitter, we're going to dinner, it
Yeah, I
is
love
super
that.
serious or whatever. So, if you can fit them in randomly, I think that's fun too.
I'll have to give you
Yeah.
guys kudos. I remember Marcus saying that you guys went on a trip together by yourselves and like left the kids for an entire weekend in England. I think you guys were in England. You guys did like a Europe like weekend travel and like left them with just kind of friends, like friends that you guys made through the military. I thought that was pretty ninja. That's pretty awesome. My wife is
Yeah,
not
we
there yet.
definitely did that. Yeah. Another thing I could encourage people to do is like just leave your kids. They're going to be fine. Like hire the babysitter, um, ask friends, ask family, whatever it is. It blows my mind that people might call you out a little bit here, Sue, that people haven't had babysitters other than like family or close friends or something. My sister-in-law, for example, lives right next door to her parents. So she essentially has a built-in babysitter 24/7 and can just drop kids off and go, and will kind of be stressed if they're not around to watch her kids. And we have only ever had to hire childcare because we've not had family or our friends are busy or whatever. And so, like, go through the process that you need to go through to like validate and verify that people are good with kids and safe or whatever. But like, it's going to be okay for a few hours to hire the babysitter, or trust your friends to watch your kids. We did, I think it was like 5 days in Scotland, and our kids were in England with some friends. It was great. I was ready to go home to them after 5 days, but it was great.
I love it. It's good stuff. Well, hey, we could probably talk for another hour. I appreciate you coming on. This was fun. I want to highlight everything that you're doing. Can you tell our audience about your podcast, your website, and just kind of your brand and what you're promoting?
Yeah, sure. So the brand's the Daily Hostess. You can go to thedailyhostess.com. There's a blog with over 300 blog posts about holidays, celebrations, how to connect with people, all that stuff. And then Conversations with the Hostess is a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you get podcasts. And again, that's about building that connection and community with people through hosting in your home. So talk to party experts, military spouses, lots of people that have great ideas and great encouragement to help you to host more and open your home up and connect with people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. Really appreciate you. Appreciate your time. I just think it's very unique and special and beautiful that you are so dedicated to hosting, which really is just community building and pouring into others and relationship and these things that I think we've lost a lot of that. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of that, and you're doing something about it. Love it. Teaching people to do something about it. Absolutely love it. And thank you for sharing your husband with us. Always enjoy our time together. He's been hugely influential in our lives, and now he's tomorrow will be day one of, well, when this comes out, it'll be weeks ago, but it'll be day one of being a TCAM coach. So we're just excited about this relationship and how our families are connected, and just looking forward to that moving forward. So thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Guys and gals, we'll put Amy's podcast and website on our show notes. Go check her out. And hey, let's go away with an action step. Invite somebody into your house, host a dinner party. It doesn't matter what your house looks like. Put your dirty underwear away, David. But besides
they were clean. The clean ones we're talking about. Dirty ones is nasty, right, dude. You're gross.
My bad. But check out Amy. Her podcast is amazing. And let's go take uncommon action together.
Yep. Thank you. See you.
Hey, before we let you go and tackle the day, we wanted to tell you about a new product coming out called the Manifesto. It's a newsletter. It's free. It comes out twice a month, and we give actionable steps, insights, and inspiration to help you on your journey to becoming a better man. We aim to be the highest value per minute email in your inbox every time. So go check it out. You can go to thekineticman.com/newsletter. Again, that's thekineticman.com/newsletter, and sign up for the Manifesto. It is going to be awesome. See you.
Thank you for listening to the Kinetic Man podcast. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.thekineticman.com to see all the ways we could connect.
And on our website, you can find more information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find more information on and sign up for the next Kinetic Man retreat and the next house of our mastermind group. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your favorite podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go take uncommon action.